Greetings and salutations, this is Vespasian and his trusty sidekick.
Hello.
We're going to carry on with the last two Q&A videos we've done. This is sort of an attachment to those, but it's a bit different. So
Same guy though.
It's the same guy, Mr. Cullen, hi. You did put a few things interesting forward when you wrote a reply, and I thought it would be interesting to do a video about them. You did touch on a couple of interesting points, so carry on. You read his.
Want to read out the whole thing?
Yeah, read his whole answer out. Yeah.
Prepare himself.
Right.
Right. It says, thank you. Funny and very informative video. I agree with the thing of how so many tanks in the smaller scale just doesn't have the impact after a number of games as the single one in bolt action. One of my first set of games was 750 points, fun tournament, and seeing that panther across the table, even though inexperienced and it did nothing but run away. That's like what happens to us. Did nothing but run away from the T-34 shooting. It still had that scary kill it.
Scary, kill it quick!
Okay.
That's what it says. Kill it quick! Effect. It's in exclamation, it's in...
No, that's what I do. Every single time I see one of your tanks, I just go straight for it.
Yeah.
Kill it quick effect, which I think would have been lacking if I had already been facing battalions of them before.
Yeah, and I thought that was very true, is what you said, which is basically what I'd said as well.
Yeah.
When playing bolt action, you're playing a game where individual tanks actually really do make a difference on the battlefield, and that makes it more worthwhile buying the tanks. I mean, physically getting the tanks to play with, let alone the points. And so you can actually really use the vehicles. In many games, you get X amount of tanks, you just put them all on the battlefield and you play a big battle. With bolt action, it's actually important that you've got that tank. Whereas, does it make any difference if you've got 16 Panthers or 20 Panthers? You know, whereas it does make a difference if you've got one Panther. As for the kill it now, that's actually pretty much true to life. Many things that the Allies suffered from was something called tiger shock. Tank shock's from 40k. Tiger shock, which is basically a mental illness suffered by tankers, by tank crewmen, and the gunners the crew would be in the tank, the Sherman or whatever tank it was they were driving, and they would see a German tank and they would soil themselves. They would just mess in their own trousers and just freeze up, and they wouldn't fire. And it would take them a few moments to get over that shock, if they even did. And then that would give the German tanks chances to fire first, and therefore the Allies would be killed. And this was a very big problem for the British and American armies fighting in Northwest Europe and in Africa. And one problem one thing that really affected it was the fact that many Tiger tanks are misidentified as Tigers, and they weren't. It was called Tiger Shock, but many tank crewmen thought Panthers were Tigers. They would see the profile and a big tank, and they would just go, "Tiger, ah!" and be terrified. And that was a serious problem. So how could you put that realism into a game? You could say veteran troops. Well, actually, you could say you just roll in the way that you roll to stop anti-aircraft fire, to see if your troops spend a move on a down order or something. You could introduce that.
I'll panic and bail.
Yeah. That would be a better way of doing it than the way Bolt Action deals with stuff. But that's just my own opinion. We don't have those special rules because we don't do Africa anymore, and we don't at the moment. We're going to do it again. We did it in 10mm, which is fun. We're going to do it in 28mm eventually.
Well, we're going to be doing a lot of
we have lots of things planned. It just we're doing a lot of other stuff, and it's not that easy to concentrate on just one thing. Because we have so many things to do and so much work to do as well.
Because we have Bolt Action, Hail Caesar, Black Powder, Dark Ages. We've got all these videos put in for viewers who like certain things.
Yeah, and we have an entire Black Powder army, 2 armies, opposing sides, still in a box, just sat there waiting to be painted. And I don't know when we'll get around to it, but anyway, we will get around to it, don't worry. And it sounds like we're whining every time we're on video saying we haven't done it yet.
Well, when we first started YouTube, we weren't really doing games, we weren't really together, we were speaking about history.
Yeah, mostly. That's what we're going to start YouTube
And now
for.
here, I'm doing Q&As with figures. I never actually thought that would ever happen.
Yeah. So anyway, tank shot, what you just described when you saw the Panther was, we've got to deal with that Panther. That Panther immediately becomes a bullet magnet to everything on the battlefield. It's like having a Titan in 40k. If you buy a Titan, I think that costs about 750 points on its own, and you put it on the battlefield, for the next 2 turns, everyone is going to fire at the Titan, which means your other troops can actually go and do whatever they like because no one's going to bother with them.
But the thing is, like a Tiger tank or something will cost so much, you won't have that many troops move around with bother it.
No, there is that as well. But when in reality, when you see, this is the problem with points-based games. Usually the Germans, there will be a handful of German soldiers versus, a platoon and a tank or 2, versus an entire battalion of enemy soldiers, of British or Americans or Russians or whoever. So the Germans would be really outnumbered, unless the Germans were offensive, and then you had concentrations of German troops, so you would have many, many more German troops to the enemy that they're facing. Probably about 3 to 1 in ratio. So a German offensive, because the Germans would concentrate all their stuff in one place. It's like the American Civil War. The Union Army massively outnumbered the Confederate Army by massive numbers, about 8 to 1. And yet they were always able to fight on parity because the Confederacy was always able to move its troops up to match the troops that the Union had. So that massive amount of superiority in numbers never really played out on the battlefield. And so that is a problem with any points-based game. So making things more expensive means you're less likely to have more than one Tiger.
Yeah.
So that's a Tiger or Panther, whatever. Say Tiger tank, which is one of the most expensive tanks you can get. So you've got this really expensive Tiger tank, and you can only afford 2 platoons of inexperienced infantry to back them up.
And then you have the enemy
and a Hetzer,
who don't have a Tiger tank, but they have so much troops on the battlefield.
Yeah, they can field 6 Shermans to your 1 Tiger tank. And 6 platoons and all the other stuff on top, and armoured cars and an aeroplane. And that's not too bad, the way the points work, although that is a really generalised game you're going to be playing there. So you have a 750 point game where you both have 750 points each, which we've done often enough, haven't we?
Yeah.
We usually that's about 700 each, or 750 each to 900 is what we usually play with.
Yeah, we do.
Generally.
And we have a lot of troops because I don't have as much troops as you because all mine are veteran.
Yeah, so most of your Japanese troops start off as veteran. Because we're doing 1937, 37 to 39, the Japanese troops are the regular army. This is before conscription was a thing. And any troops who have been conscripted weren't frontline troops anyway. So, and also, as far as conscripts go, not wishing to be unkind, but many Chinese soldiers, by the time they would get to the front line, had already killed someone. So they were already better than conscripts from other armies. Conscripts from most armies are given a broom handle to play with and then eventually given a rifle, and then they have to bayonet sandbags and they get taught
slowly, by walking.
Well, slowly, yeah, because you might hurt yourself.
If you run, you might trip over.
Yeah, then maybe crawl under some barbed wire for some reason.
Or land face first into it.
Yeah, you could do all that sort of stuff. And crawl under barbed wire while machine guns are firing, which is actually suicidal because machine guns spray bullets and will kill anyone underneath barbed wire, but who cares?
And if you do survive from a hit, you're bound to go, and get caught in barbed wire.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah. So you do all that training, and then you get sent to the front line, and you don't understand anything.
And you do something stupid, and that risks your life.
Yeah, and then you basically have to see combat for the first time. Usually you're not in the platoon you start with, so you don't know anyone. You're sent to plug the holes in other units. So you're the new guy, and no one's going to talk to you because it's a waste of time, because you're going to die.
What about the Barnsley loss?
That was World War One.
Oh,
Barnsley
right,
Pals.
yeah,
Well, they did an impersonation of people being machine gunned to death. They were just wasted. Most of the Pals regiments were wasted. We went to where the Barnsley Pals died.
You showed me.
Yeah, I showed you it. And it's just a little... It's next to the big... There's a big thing of a stag. Because one of the memorials is there. And it's just a little dip in the ground. And that's where the British trench was. And the Barnsley Pals were all in this trench. And they blew the whistle and the Barnsley Pals just stood up and tried to walk up this little slight slope towards where the German trench was. And if you stand on where the German trench was, you have perfect view of everything. You stand where the Barnsley Pals trench was, and there's still a bit of the trench that's actually the original trench. It's sort of kept the same. And you can't see the German position at all. And those guys were just going to die the moment they were sent, really. It was insane to even send soldiers into a situation like that. So I can't really get over how unbelievably stupid officers are in reality. I'm not saying you should go to the Russian system where they would say, right, now we're going to launch an attack, let's debate it. And the men would debate whether or not they would launch an attack or not, which is not really useful. But
the criminal trenches, let's debate what to do.
Yeah. But at least have officers with at least some form of training. Just some form of training. I mean, the officers in the British Army now, not wishing to be unkind, they lack a certain level of ability that officers, say, in the last part of the Second World War had. They're not realists. They're really not. And when you talk to them, they seem to have a very obscure way of looking at the world and at the battlefield. And I don't know. I'm not surprised we were defeated by a bunch of local militia, to be honest. But that's a whole other story. So, back onto the subject of Tiger Shock, which you very well described when your T-34 was popping away at the Panther. The T-34 and the Panther, I wouldn't say too evenly matched, but they are evenly matched. The T-34 was a pretty good tank. It had horrific mechanical problems, and the crew generally didn't have much training because of the limited survival time men in tanks had. The same as the British and the Americans. Very, very few men survived the beginning to the end of the war. The amount of men killed in their tanks is huge, and many tanks had multiple crews dying in them. So you haven't got elite veteran crews driving around in tanks, and if you have, then they're not going anywhere. They're just sat waiting in ambush. They're not driving down open roads without infantry. So tank for tank, a T-34 can kill a Panther relatively easily. It's your ability. So can I discussed this in the last video. A Sherman can kill a Tiger at 500 yards. And the chances of seeing a tiger at 500 yards, the chances of being longer range than that are very limited because most of Europe is trees and bushes and houses. So your chances of seeing a viable target over 500 yards is quite limited. So if you see a tiger, you can probably kill it. It doesn't matter what tank you're driving it. Your downside is your anti-tank rounds, and as I mentioned in the last video, the Americans only had one anti-tank round. And the British would usually only have one anti-tank round. Some tanks wouldn't be given anti-tank rounds at all if it was assumed that there were no enemy tanks in the area. So that's a downside which the rules don't take into consideration. But in reality, the only way you're going to win a tank-on-tank fight between a Panther or a Tiger and a Sherman or a T-34 is getting the initiative and firing at them first. And tank shock, the Tiger shock, is the way the Germans kill us first in games, because the Germans don't feel fear when they see the Germans driving what they are told is the most elite, amazing tank ever. And if you look at a German tank, you just think that is cool, that is futuristic sci-fi stuff, that is right there. And they get in the tank and they're like, we're the guys, we're going to get them. And so you go out and fight and you see a Sherman or you see a T-34 and you go, well, that's an enemy tank. Whereas a British guy who gets in the tank, and regardless of propaganda, everyone else is telling them those Tiger tanks, they're terrifying, they'll kill you. And you're not allowed to talk about it. It's banned discussing it. It's a taboo subject. If you talk about it openly, you can be arrested by the police. So you will whisper to each other, the Germans have these tanks, they're lethal tanks. So you see a German tank and you immediately go, oh God, it's a Tiger, oh God, I'm going to die. And rather than shooting at the tank, you freeze up. Most of the time it won't be a Tiger tank, it will be another type of tank. But if you see a German tank, your instant idea is, it's a Tiger tank, it's going to kill me. If you fire first, you kill it. So you look at Northwest Europe. We built the Firefly, and the American version of the Firefly, which is a Sherman mounted with a 90mm gun if you're American, or 17 pound if you're British. And these tanks are designed to hunt down and kill Tiger tanks and Panthers. It was supposed to be a really powerful gun. They couldn't hit anything. They literally could not hit a barn door. They actually fired a tank at the barn, and did they hit it?
No.
I don't think they even hit the barn. Because it was a sabot round, which means it's not a pointed dart you're firing, it's a flat-headed thing, and the tank shell would come out of the end of the barrel and whiz around and fly off, and it won't hit anything. So these tanks only really any use are at point-blank range, really gun for gun. That is the only time you can really use them. And the Shermans, the American and the British Sherman, and the British Achilles, actually, they only managed to kill 2 Tiger tanks the entire Second World War. So what was the point of Firefly? The 75 mounted on most Shermans was more than capable of killing a German tank. It just weren't issued with the ammo to do it with. Most of the time they only carried HE. A few rounds to take out trucks and stuff, and armoured cars and gun positions. They weren't kitted out to be fighting tanks because they just didn't have the ships. Because unfortunately, the ships carrying the ammunition, the ships carrying the tanks made it. The ships carrying the ammunition were torpedoed and sank. So we just didn't have the rounds. The same in the desert. We had the Matilda, an extremely powerful tank, very heavy tank, slow but heavy. It had no ammunition for its anti-tank gun. So it had no ammunition, that's it. So it had to be fitted with either a 2-pounder or it's silly. What's the smoke launcher version? What's the smoke launcher tank? Was that a Matilda version as well?
I believe so.
Yeah, there was another version which was kitted out with a 3-inch gun, and it could only fire smoke because, again, the ship carrying the ammunition sank. The Germans sank it, and there was no ammunition.
They were basically stranded.
Yeah, so they had no guns. So basically, the British fighting Rommel were going into battle with a tank that can only fire smoke. Seriously, it fires smoke rounds. That is all it can do. That is all it is capable of doing. It's a tank. It is useless as a combat vehicle. And the Germans would just drive past these things and ignore them, because all it could do was fire smoke. And most of the time the crews got out and run off anyway. Why did Rommel win in the desert so easily? Well, because our tanks had no shells. We couldn't shoot at them. The only anti-tank guns we actually had were the 2-pounder, which is okay if you can get the ammo for it, and the 2-pounder ammo tended to just not go off. It would either not go off or it would jam, because the shell cases weren't made properly, because we were using not particularly good labour to make it, and we couldn't get the spare parts, so our factories are producing rubbish shells. So yeah, technically on paper you can have lots of rule systems which will say, this tank is awesome, this tank is rubbish. In reality, it's who fires first. And forget penetration values at range, because the chances of your... For a start, if you're firing at range, you're not going to hit it. If you're using a squeeze velocity gun, you can hit it. So the Germans can actually hit targets really far away. But what are your chances of actually seeing a target far away? They're very limited. So most of the time I'm gaming, and with bolt action, the maximum distance you get is either side of a table, which is... What's that? That's less than 500 yards. Mm-hmm. So whenever you're on the battlefield, you can kill each other because you're at close range. So the only thing that can make the difference between being in a Tiger tank and being in a Sherman is who fires first. And that's how the rules work, basically. Although it does have very slight variations in gun types, doesn't it? For anti-tank and stuff.
Does that answer your question?
I hope it does. I just wanted to go into what you were describing is something that was real. You were describing it in gaming terms, saying, well, you saw the Panther and you were worried about the Panther because it was one Panther, you were worried about it. That was actually a real thing. That actually happened, and that is what really happened in real life. So that's, I hope, slightly more interesting for you. I thought it gives you a bit more information, and make sure that you know you're not going insane, because actually that's how real people thought in real life. And that's basically the end of this video. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and now over to my sponsor.
So if you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe, and if you have any questions on this, we'll answer them in another bolt action Q&A. We've done a lot of bolt action Q&As lately.
All from the same subject matter.
And that's everything from me.
And that's everything from him. Good day.